The small farming town of Pine Creek, Montana was quiet as usual that Tuesday morning. Farmers tended their fields, children waited for school buses, and the local diner served its regular breakfast crowd. No one expected that day would change human history forever. At 8:17 a.m., a bright light cut through the clear blue sky. What first looked like a meteor soon slowed its descent, hovering briefly before landing in an empty wheat field. The object was metallic, roughly the size of a small bus, with no visible windows or doors. Within 30 minutes, military helicopters swarmed the area. Captain James Wilson, a decorated veteran with 20 years of service, led the first response team. The government had protocols for this exact scenario, though few believed they would ever be needed. Maintain perimeter at 500 yards, Wilson ordered through his radio. No one approaches until the science team arrives. Dr. Alan Brooks, the lead xenobiologist, joined Wilson at the command post hastily erected on a nearby hill. "This is it, Captain. Actual proof we're not alone." Wilson nodded, his expression serious. "Let's hope they're friendly." The science team set up equipment designed to detect radiation, biological contaminants, and attempt basic communication. Military drones circled overhead, streaming live footage to the Pentagon and White House. 3 hours after landing, the alien craft finally showed signs of activity. A seamless panel slid open on its side. Movement at the craft. A soldier reported. "Something's coming out." The creatures that emerged were nothing like the big-headed, thin-limbed aliens of popular culture. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, they had broad shoulders and thick limbs covered in what appeared to be a combination of scales and fur. Their faces were flat with 4 eyes positioned in a horizontal line. There were 3 of them, each carrying what looked unmistakably like weapons. "Hold positions," Wilson commanded. "Dr. Brooks, initiate first contact protocol." Brooks activated the universal greeting, a series of mathematical sequences and simple pictographs transmitted via light patterns and radio waves. The aliens paused, observing. "They're receiving it," Brooks whispered, hopeful. Then everything went wrong. Without warning, one of the aliens raised its weapon and fired. A blue energy pulse hit the nearest military vehicle, instantly melting its engine block. Soldiers scrambled for cover. "Hold fire," Wilson shouted, but it was too late. A second blast struck Sergeant Mike Foster, vaporizing him instantly. Chaos erupted as soldiers returned fire. Bullets seemed to bounce off invisible shields surrounding the aliens. Wilson grabbed Brooks and pulled him behind a concrete barrier. So much for peaceful first contact. The firefight lasted less than 2 minutes. 2 more soldiers died before the aliens retreated to their craft. As suddenly as they had arrived, the ship lifted off, accelerating at impossible speeds. The aftermath was grim. 3 dead soldiers, destroyed equipment, and the undeniable knowledge that Earth had just made contact with a hostile alien species. Within 24 hours, the United Nations Security Council called an emergency meeting. World leaders agreed to set aside long-standing differences in the face of a potential existential threat. The Earth Defense Coalition was formed with unprecedented cooperation between former enemies. Admiral Thomas Reed, known for his strategic brilliance and calm under pressure, was appointed as the EDC's first commander. "We recovered this," a scientist told Reed, presenting a damaged piece of alien technology. "It's some kind of communications device. We believe we can use it to track their frequencies." Reed studied the device. "Can we send messages on their channels?" "Theoretically, yes." "Good." Reed nodded. "Because I want them to know we're not as helpless as they think." Later that week, scientists analyzing the recovered tech made a chilling discovery. The aliens, which they now called the Vex based on symbols found on their equipment, hadn't come for peaceful exploration. Data fragments revealed Earth was marked for assessment as a potential colony. The scout ship was just the beginning. Humanity had received its wake-up call. And now, they would answer it. Admiral Reed stood before the wall of screens, in the newly built EDC headquarters buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. 1 week had passed since the Montana incident, and Earth's governments had moved with unprecedented speed and unity. "We've cracked their communication frequency," Dr. Lisa Mercer announced as she entered the command center. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. "We can send them a message they'll understand." Reed nodded. At 62, he had hoped to retire soon, but fate had other plans. "What have we learned about them so far?" "We call them the Vex, based on symbols in their tech," Lisa explained. "They'd visited at least 6 other planets before ours, and none of those civilizations exist anymore." The room fell silent. The implications were clear. "Show me everything," Reed ordered. The team spent hours reviewing the data extracted from the alien device. The Vex were part of an empire that spanned dozens of star systems. They sought resources and habitable worlds, caring little for native species that stood in their way. "They think we're primitive," Lisa said, pointing to a sequence of alien symbols. "Based on our limited space travel and technology, they expected us to just roll over." Reed's jaw tightened. "Then let's correct that misunderstanding." The plan came together quickly. Using the recovered alien tech, Earth would broadcast a message directly to the Vex homeworld. Not a plea for peace, but a warning. 3 days later, the most powerful radio transmitters on Earth were linked together, boosted by technology reverse-engineered from the alien device. World leaders gathered to witness the broadcast. The President of the United States nodded to Reed. "You're authorized to proceed, Admiral." Reed took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "This message is for the species known as the Vex. We are humanity of planet Earth. Your scouts attacked us without provocation. We know you're coming. We know what you've done to other worlds." His voice grew harder. "We will not be conquered. We will not be colonized. We are preparing, and we will be ready. Approach with peaceful intent, or don't approach at all. This is the only warning you will receive." The message was translated into the Vex language using algorithms developed by Dr. Mercer's team and sent into space, riding the alien frequency. For 3 days, there was no response. Then, on the 4th day, Earth's newly established deep space monitoring stations picked up a flurry of alien communications. "They're surprised," the translator team reported. They didn't expect us to have this capability." Reed smiled grimly. "Good. Let's keep surprising them." Within weeks, the United Nations approved the largest military buildup in human history. Countries shared technology, resources, and manpower. Old enemies became allies against a common threat. Dr. Mercer led a team of the world's brightest scientists working to understand and improve upon the alien technology. "Their weapons use a form of plasma energy," she explained during one briefing. "But we found weaknesses. Their shields can't stop certain frequencies." Meanwhile, factories worldwide shifted to war production. Orbital defense platforms were designed and built in secret, then launched under the cover of commercial satellite missions. Reed oversaw it all, pushing humanity to prepare faster than any civilization had ever done before. 6 months after the Montana incident, a breakthrough came. Dr. Mercer's team intercepted communications revealing that the Vex were indeed planning a full invasion of Earth. "They're coming," she told Reed, her face pale. "A fleet larger than anything we've prepared for." Reed studied the data, then looked up at the team around him. "How long do we have?" "Based on their current position and speed, 5 years, maybe less." Reed nodded slowly. "Then we have work to do." He turned to the communications officer. "Send another message. Keep it simple." The officer nodded. That night, a second transmission left Earth, riding the alien frequencies to the stars. "We warned you. We're watching. We'll be ready." The silent years had begun. Earth would use every second wisely. 5 years passed with no sign of the Vex, but Earth was far from quiet. Admiral Reed, now with streaks of gray in his once black hair, walked slowly through the massive underground facility in Antarctica. This was just one of 12 identical bases built around the world during what people now called the Silent Years. "How are the new Guardian units performing?" Reed asked Colonel David Miller, who walked beside him. "Better than expected, sir. The neural implants have increased reaction time by 400%. Each soldier can process battlefield information faster than any computer we had 5 years ago." They stopped at a reinforced window overlooking a training chamber. Below, 20 men and women in sleek combat armor moved with impossible speed and precision, their bodies enhanced by the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. "And they're still human?" Reed asked quietly. Miller nodded. Dr. Mercer was very clear about that. "Enhanced, but still human. Their free will and emotions remain intact." "Good," Reed said, "because that's what the Vex don't understand about us. Our humanity is our strength, not our weakness." Elsewhere, Dr. Lisa Mercer stood on the observation deck of the Lunar Defense Station. Through the thick glass, she could see Earth glowing blue and green against the blackness of space. Around the planet, hundreds of defense platforms orbited silently, each armed with weapons reverse-engineered from Vex technology. "The FTL communication system is online," her assistant reported. "All defense networks can now coordinate in real time." Lisa nodded. Faster-than-light communication had been thought impossible before the Vex arrived. Now it was just one of many impossible technologies humanity had developed. "And Project Aegis?" she asked. "The planetary shield generators are at 92% capacity. We can cover 87% of Earth's surface if needed." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. 5 years ago, the idea of shielding an entire planet would have seemed like science fiction. Now, it was just another item on her checklist. On the far side of the moon, hidden from Earth, the massive cannons of the Armstrong Defense Array pointed toward the stars. Each cannon could fire a projectile at near-light speed, capable of destroying a Vex ship from millions of miles away. Back on Earth, cities had transformed. New buildings were constructed with materials that could withstand plasma weapons. Underground shelters could house entire populations. Every child over 10 knew basic survival skills and emergency protocols. The world had changed in other ways too. Old conflicts had faded as humanity united against a common threat. Resources were shared, technologies exchanged openly. The coming invasion had done what centuries of diplomacy could not. It had united Earth. At EDC headquarters, Reed reviewed the latest deep space monitoring reports. Strange signals had been detected near Neptune, at the edge of the solar system. "Could be natural phenomena," suggested the young technician. Reed shook his head. "It's them. They're here." The alert went out silently. Around the world, defense forces moved to their positions without panic or fanfare. This moment had been rehearsed thousands of times. In orbit, defense platforms powered up. On the moon, the Armstrong Array charged its weapons. In the Guardian barracks, enhanced soldiers suited up for what they had trained for their entire careers. Reed stood before the main communication array, the same one that had sent humanity's warning 5 years earlier. His face showed no fear, only grim determination. "Send the message," he ordered. Across the vast emptiness of space, a simple transmission beamed toward the approaching Vex fleet. "We warned you. We're ready." In the darkness near Neptune, the massive Vex fleet received the message. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the alien armada began to move closer to Earth, their engines glowing with eerie blue light. The silent years were over. The first engagement was about to begin. Major Alex Torres floated in his command pod, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of both human and Vex ships. His fighter squadron, codenamed Thunder, was humanity's first line of defense as the alien fleet approached Jupiter. "Thunder Squadron, maintain formation," Torres ordered calmly. "Remember your training. These aliens may have been crossing the stars before our ancestors invented the wheel, but they've never faced humans before. The 20 pilots under his command acknowledge. Each flew a Raptor-class fighter, built with a mixture of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Vex technology. The ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but faster and more maneuverable. On Earth, Admiral Reed watched the situation unfold from EDC headquarters. The Vex fleet is bypassing our early warning stations on Neptune and Uranus, a technician reported. They don't consider them a threat. Reed smiled slightly. Good. Let them underestimate us. Near Jupiter's orbit, Torres received the order he had been waiting for. Thunder Squadron, you are cleared to engage. Show them what humanity can do. Copy that, Torres replied. Thunder Squadron, weapons hot. Execute Pattern Alpha. The human fighters accelerated suddenly, their engines flaring bright against the darkness of space. The Vex fleet, expecting a head-on confrontation, was caught off guard as the smaller ships split into 4 groups, attacking from multiple angles. Fire Mark 7 missiles, Torres commanded. The missiles launched, each carrying a warhead designed specifically to penetrate Vex shields. The aliens attempted evasive maneuvers, but the human weapons tracked them with perfect precision. 6 Vex ships exploded in rapid succession. The alien fleet responded with a barrage of plasma weapons, but the human fighters were already changing positions, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. They're adapting to our tactics, Torres warned as he spun his fighter through a tight loop, avoiding enemy fire. Switch to Pattern Delta. The squadron regrouped and then scattered again, this time in a seemingly random pattern that confused the Vex targeting systems. Meanwhile, from the hidden bases on Jupiter's moons, Earth's long-range defense cannons powered up. Jupiter defensive grid is online, reported a technician at EDC headquarters. Reed nodded. Fire when ready. Massive energy beams shot from the moons of Jupiter, striking the rear of the Vex fleet. The aliens, focused on the fighter squadron, hadn't detected the hidden weapon installations. 12 more enemy ships were destroyed before they could react. We've got them caught between our forces, Torres told his squadron. Press the advantage. For the next hour, the battle raged across Jupiter's orbit. Human fighters darted between the larger alien vessels, striking with precision, and then retreating before the Vex could respond effectively. When it was over, nearly a third of the advance Vex fleet had been destroyed. The rest retreated to regroup with their main force. Torres guided his damaged fighter back to the base on Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. Despite taking heavy fire, only 2 human pilots had been lost. We did it, he breathed, hardly believing the outcome himself. Back on Earth, the news of humanity's first victory spread quickly. People celebrated in streets around the world, but Reed and his commanders knew this was just the beginning. We've survived the first round, Reed told his staff, but they'll be back with their main fleet, and they won't underestimate us again. In deep space, the Vex commander, a tall figure with 4 glowing eyes, received reports of the defeat. For the first time in the long history of Vex conquests, an advance force had been repelled. The commander sent a message to Earth. Your resistance is noted but futile. Surrender now and some of your species may be preserved. When Reed received the transmission, he laughed without humor. Send our reply, he ordered. The message was brief. Come and find out. The Vex main fleet began to move. The real invasion was about to begin. The main Vex fleet arrived 3 days later. It was massive, eclipsing even the darkest predictions of Earth's military planners. Thousands of ships filled the space between Mars and Earth, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun. There are so many, whispered a young technician at EDC headquarters. Admiral Reed nodded grimly. But we're ready. Activate all orbital platforms. Around Earth, the defense platforms that had been built during the silent years powered up. Each was armed with weapons that could destroy Vex ships, but there were simply too many targets. The first wave of alien ships broke through the outer defenses within hours. Orbital platforms exploded one after another as they were overwhelmed by superior numbers. "They're entering the atmosphere," reported Colonel Miller. 4 main landing zones detected: outside New York, Beijing, Moscow, and Cairo. Reed's face showed no fear, only determination. "Deploy the Guardian units. Activate Project Aegis." Around the world, the elite soldiers of the Guardian program moved into position. Enhanced by neural implants and wearing advanced battle armor, they were humanity's best hope against the ground invasion. Commander Marcus Jones led the Guardian unit defending New York. As Vex landing craft descended through the clouds, he addressed his soldiers. "This is what we trained for," he said simply. "These aliens think they're superior. Let's prove them wrong." The Vex forces that emerged from the landing craft were tall, heavily armored, and carried weapons that fired bursts of plasma energy. They advanced with mechanical precision, expecting little resistance. They were wrong. The Guardian unit struck with coordinated precision. Their enhanced reflexes and neural implants allowed them to predict enemy movements and communicate instantaneously without speaking. Jones ducked under a plasma burst and fired his rifle at a weak point in a Vex soldier's armor. The alien fell, and Jones moved to the next target without pausing. Similar scenes played out across all 4 invasion sites. The aliens had numbers, but the Guardians had skill and determination that the Vex couldn't match. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Mercer worked frantically at her control station beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Project Aegis is at 95% power," she reported. "We can activate the shield now, but it won't cover the entire planet. Focus coverage on civilian population centers," Reed ordered. "The military can handle themselves." Mercer nodded and pressed her palm against the activation panel. Around the world, massive generators hummed to life. A shimmering energy field began to form over major cities, protecting millions of civilians from orbital bombardment. The Vex commander, watching from the flagship, was stunned. No species had ever developed shield technology on this scale before. This was not the primitive resistance they had expected. "New tactic," the commander ordered. "Target their power sources." The Vex fleet redirected their attack, focusing fire on Earth's power generation facilities. But humanity had prepared for this too. "They're targeting the power grid," Miller reported. Reed smiled slightly. "Activate the EMP defense." Across the battlefield, human forces deployed special devices developed during the silent years. When activated, they released pulses of electromagnetic energy specifically tuned to the frequency of Vex technology. Alien weapons sputtered and died. Landing craft lost power and crashed. The invasion stalled as the Vex struggled to adapt. In New York, Commander Jones led his Guardians on a counterattack, pushing the aliens back toward their disabled ships. "The tide is turning," Miller reported to Reed. "All 4 invasion sites report the aliens are retreating." But Reed didn't celebrate. He knew this was just the beginning. "They'll adapt to our EMP technology soon," he said. "We need to take the fight to them." He turned to his communications officer. "Contact Major Torres. Tell him to prepare his pilots for a mission I thought we'd never attempt." "Sir." Reed's eyes were hard with determination. "It's time for a counterattack. We're taking the fight to their command ship." Captain Emily Chen stood in the hangar of the lunar base, looking at the sleek assault ship that would carry her strike team to the Vex command vessel. The ship, named Hornet, was small enough to avoid detection, but packed with the best weapons humans had developed. "Your mission is simple but dangerous," Major Torres told Chen and her team of 12 Guardian soldiers. "Board the Vex command ship, gather intelligence, and, if possible, capture their leader." Chen nodded. At 32, she had spent the last 5 years training for this exact mission. "We won't let Earth down," she promised. As the strike team prepared, Admiral Reed addressed the world's military forces from EDC headquarters. "Today, we take the fight to the enemy," he said, his voice firm. "For too long, the Vex have believed they could simply take our world. Today, we show them the cost of that mistake." Across Earth's orbit, Every remaining fighter and warship prepared for battle. This would be humanity's largest coordinated attack. The Hornet launched quietly from the dark side of the moon, its stealth systems hiding it from Vex sensors. As a diversion, Major Torres led 3 fighter squadrons in a bold attack against the front of the alien fleet. Thunder Squadron, engage targets, Torres ordered. Draw their attention away from the Hornet. Human fighters swarmed around the larger alien vessels, their attacks precisely coordinated. The Vex responded as expected, focusing their defenses forward. Meanwhile, the Hornet approached the massive Vex command ship from behind. The vessel was enormous, nearly the size of a small city, with strange spires and glowing energy emitters covering its surface. "We're approaching the target," Chen told her team. "Prepare for boarding." Using technology reverse-engineered from the Vex scout ship that had started it all, the Hornet created a small breach in the alien vessel's hull. Chen led her team through, their advanced armor protecting them from the different atmosphere inside. "Stay alert," she warned. "We don't know what we'll find." The interior of the Vex ship was strange, with curved corridors and pulsing lights that seemed alive. The team moved quietly, avoiding patrols of alien soldiers. "Command center should be 2 levels up," whispered Lieutenant Ryan Park, checking the scanner Dr. Mercer had designed. As they moved deeper into the ship, Chen noticed something odd. "The technology here. It's different from what we've seen before. More advanced." They reached a large chamber filled with glowing containers. Inside each was a different alien species, preserved but alive. "What is this?" Park wondered. "Some kind of zoo." Chen studied the nearest container, which held a tall, thin being unlike the Vex. "No," she said slowly. "I think these are refugees." Before they could investigate further, a door opened and 3 Vex soldiers entered. The fight was brief but violent. Chen's team took down the aliens quickly, but not before an alarm began to sound. "Move fast," Chen ordered. "We need to reach the command center now." They fought their way upward, their enhanced abilities giving them an edge over the surprised Vex defenders. Finally, they reached the command center, a vast room dominated by a holographic display of the solar system. The Vex commander turned to face them, 4 eyes blinking in what might have been surprise. "Humans," it said in a rough approximation of English. "You are not what we expected." Chen kept her weapon trained on the alien. "We get that a lot." "You do not understand," the commander continued. "We did not come only to conquer. We came to escape." "Escape what?" Chen demanded. The commander gestured to a display showing a massive dark shape moving between stars. "That. The Devourers. They have consumed 100 worlds already. Yours will be next. Unless." "Unless what?" Chen asked, suddenly aware that this mission had just become much more complicated. "Unless we stand together," the Vex commander said simply. At that moment, Chen's communication device activated. It was Dr. Mercer. "Captain, the Spear of Earth is ready. Admiral Reed awaits your signal to fire." Chen looked at the Vex commander, then at the image of the approaching threat. She had a decision to make that would change humanity's future forever. Captain Chen stood before the United Nations Security Council, the Vex commander beside her. 2 weeks had passed since the fateful decision aboard the alien command ship. The choice was clear, Chen explained to the gathered world leaders. "Once we verified the Vex commander's claims about the Devourers, we had to act." Admiral Reed nodded in agreement. Despite his initial skepticism, the evidence had been overwhelming. The Devourers were real, a hive-mind species that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing behind. "We used the Spear of Earth to destroy the remaining hostile Vex ships," Reed continued, "but we offered asylum to those willing to share knowledge and help us prepare for the greater threat." The Vex commander stepped forward. "Unlike during the invasion, it now wore no weapons. My people have conquered many worlds," it admitted in its strange mechanical voice. "But we have never encountered a species like humans. You were prepared. You fought back effectively. You made us reconsider." President Williams looked unconvinced. "And we're supposed to trust them now, after they tried to take our world?" Dr. Lisa Mercer approached the podium. "With respect, Madam President, the knowledge the Vex have shared has already advanced our technology by decades. FTL travel is now possible. We can reach nearby star systems within days. And we'll need that capability," Reed added grimly. "The Devourers are still coming. According to Vex calculations, they'll reach our solar system within 20 years. The meeting continued for hours as plans were made for humanity's future. By the end, a new agency had been formed, the Stellar Defense and Exploration Command, replacing the EDC. Its mission would be twofold: prepare defenses against the Devourer threat and explore the galaxy for potential allies. 6 months later, Reed stood on the observation deck of Earth's first true starship, the ESS Horizon. At 70 years old, he had delayed his retirement yet again to oversee humanity's expansion to the stars. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Dr. Mercer said, joining him at the window. Below them, Earth shone blue and green against the blackness of space. Reed nodded. "I never thought I'd see this day. Humans among the stars, not as refugees or conquerors, but as explorers." "And defenders," Mercer added. "The Vex data shows at least 12 other civilizations within range that don't know about the Devourer threat yet." Reed smiled slightly. "Then we'll warn them and help them prepare, just as we prepared ourselves." The starship's engines hummed as it prepared for its first jump to light speed. Captain Chen, now commanding the Horizon, spoke over the communication system. "All stations report ready. Admiral, we can depart on your order." Reed took a last look at Earth. "Proceed, Captain. Let's introduce ourselves to the galaxy." As the Horizon disappeared into the stars, a final message was broadcast to all known frequencies across space. Unlike the warning sent years before, this one carried a different tone. "This is humanity of Earth. We stand ready to meet peaceful civilizations as friends and allies. We offer knowledge, partnership, and warning of a threat to all life. Those who come in peace will find willing friends. Those who come with harmful intent should remember, we faced the Vex and prevailed. Earth is defended, now and always." Across the galaxy, various alien civilizations received the message, some with fear, others with curiosity, and a few with relief at finding potential allies against enemies they already faced. A new era had begun. Humanity had not only survived its first contact, but emerged stronger. The invasion that was meant to conquer Earth had instead launched humans to the stars, ready to take their place among the ancient civilizations of the galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the Devourers continued their slow advance, unaware that their next meal was now prepared to fight back.